Welcome to the Coleman Nation Show. I'm your host, Michael Coleman. And today we're going to be talking about the real scene with artificial intelligence and does humanity even have a chance? What is the real scene with artificial intelligence? Looking at where we're at today and the fact that it's a tool, I think there's a lot of controversy and there's a lot of questions, to be frank with you, about what direction artificial intelligence is going to take. And I think that it's really, really important for us to have this conversation today. When you start to look at some of the things that are out there right now, you look at ChatGPT and some of the other, functionalities that artificial intelligence is there to put in place to make work easier for human beings. You start to go, oh, wow, this is a really powerful tool. But there's a dark side of artificial intelligence where the thought is that it can be replacing human beings and then ultimately become a senior intelligence and a senior life force than what humans are. And it's always been the case that human beings are at the top of the food chain. Like we are the pinnacle, the apex predator of of the planet Earth, right? But what's being considered is that there's a new apex predator, which is artificial intelligence. And there actually is a faction of people that consider that because of the fact that we're evolving to the next level and that artificial intelligence is the next evolution of intelligence, that we are going to be a subordinate race to AI. And my opinion is that nothing could be further from the truth. I think that we're going to be in a position where we are going to still continue to be the dominant species. And it's going to be something that we're going to have for literally, I don't think that we're going to have the opportunity to develop organic intelligence the same way that human beings have developed for probably another 200,000 years. And I think that artificial intelligence is a tool that has been created for us to use, but in no way, shape, or form does the fact that it can do a square root problem faster than I can do it myself. I don't think that there's any way that artificial intelligence is going to be a superior intelligence to humanity anytime soon. So how does this tie into human logic? What is the sort of reasoning behind the fact that I think that artificial intelligence is not going to, fully supplant us as a race and completely, turn us into, slaves of our own making? The fact of the matter is that logically, I just want you to kind of look at it. Artificial intelligence is in place to be able to do work for human beings. As smart as you might be able to make it, and as sort of autonomous as you could make artificial intelligence, that it could, quote unquote, control itself at every point in time, it is always going to require humans for inspiration. Is it possible for artificial intelligence to synthesize, right? To have instructions given to it to then synthesize inspiration? That is true. But real inspiration, the creation of the factors and the catalysts of synthesis itself is always going to be created by human beings. So the fact is that real creation is not going to be something that is going to be possible for artificial intelligence. And, I was thinking about this. If we were to fast forward all of the, in time, the trajectory that we're on right now, I really think that, if artificial intelligence was going to, sort of Terminator 2, destroy all of humanity, completely wipe us off the planet, eventually, because of the fact that AI can't create itself, that it always relies on real inspiration from human beings, right? I think that ultimately it would wind up decaying and diminishing over time to the point where it would just be a bunch of, broken old computer parts in the future. And so there is a symbiotic relationship between humanity and artificial intelligence right now. And I just really don't think that there's a danger of us being replaced by AI. The real danger is AI being weaponized against humanity. That's the real danger that we're talking about here, is that it is being weaponized by humanity against humanity. And I think that that's the thing that we really have to worry about is that, is the responsibility and the morality of the people that are in charge that could wield AI against, ourselves and against civilization. I think that's the real danger that we have to worry about right now. So let's talk about there's a concept that I want to kind of make clear to everybody. And this is I want you to go on a journey with me. Like, how did I wind up coming up with some of these concepts, and like why, in one aspect, am I really worried about, again, AI being used as a tool against civilization, but at the same time, why am I not worried about it becoming, sort of quote unquote self-aware and like completely destroying us? And there's a specific reason why. The reason why I look at this and I think about it is that, let me give you an example of something from my life that had a profound effect on me when I was 7 years old. My dad sat me down and he said, listen, close your eyes. And I said, all right, close my eyes. All right. I'm not thinking about anything. All right. I'm 7 years old. So I closed my eyes and he says, think of a cat. And so I thought of a cat, and I'm like, he's like, he's telling me to describe the cat, all that kind of stuff. And then next thing you know, he goes, okay, so who's looking at the cat? And my answer to that was, well, it's me. And he goes, right. And all of a sudden, just think about it. As a 7-year-old kid, I'm sitting there going, oh. And I had this realization. I'm driving. I'm the driver. I'm the person that's driving this little, this little meat popsicle. I'm driving this sack of bones. And all of a sudden it was like, wow, okay, that really makes a lot of sense. And that was something that I realized at 7 years old, is that I was the driver, right? So I look at it right now. This is the question that I have. In artificial intelligence, who is the driver? We talk about, inspiration. We talk about autonomy. At no point in time does artificial intelligence or, the cyborgs or humanoid, whatever you want to call it, the robot empire that's coming to get us, at no point in time do they have autonomous creation of inspired thought. It doesn't exist, right? So this is one of the reasons why I'm not too worried about the fact that we're going to wind up, being, enslaved by a robot empire. But this is the real reason why, is that there is no driver. Everything that happens in artificial intelligence right now is all dependent upon inspired thought by humans. Now, could that change? Yes, it could. Could we have original inspired thought, not synthesis, other thoughts coming from, humans, aggregate catalysts that are coming up with these conclusions? Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. It's possible to have an organic intelligence be able to come up with real thoughts. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I think that we are probably 200,000 years away from actually having artificial intelligence evolve into an organic intelligence that can actually have inspired artistic thought. Just look at the fact that right now, if you look at, some of the AI that exists right now and you ask it to do, make up some of the stuff that it comes up with is totally crazy and absolutely illogical. It literally makes no sense. Why? Because it has trouble resolving the creative process in a way that is organic and logical to humans. It tries to do it and it absolutely fails on many fronts, And so I think that looking at that, I don't think there's any real danger outside of, again, the weaponization of AI against civilization by humanity. I think that's the greater danger than AI in and of itself coming up with inspired thought anytime soon. So why do I think it's going to take 200,000 years for artificial intelligence to evolve into organic intelligence and to be able to come up with, true inspired original thought? If you look at it right now, just look at how long it has taken for us to get where we are. Even just looking at something as little, and this is the real sort of, it's deceptive in the way that we think. We look at the fact that you have the iPhone didn't exist 15 years ago, right? And now all of a sudden it exists, and it's a very, very, very powerful tool. There's lots of copies and all that kind of stuff. And we think that to go from no iPhone to iPhone, and then we have, all of this sort of like global cloud network, the accumulation of all human knowledge has accumulated in the cloud, in the internet. And you look at that, I sit here and I go, okay, that deceptively again seems like a very, very accelerated, concept. Well, how long did it take us to get there? How long did it take us to even get to where we've got an iPhone and cloud computing and all of these other things that we, look forward to, and the technologies and the functions that we, experience and benefit from on a day-to-day basis? It looks like, wow, just a couple of decades and things have, escalated beyond our comprehension. And I think that you go back in time and you look at predecessors to that. You look at some of the great philosophers, you look at some of the great, thinkers, you look at some of the great scientists that were able to, put things together, from quantum computing to, physics, and you continue to roll backwards from there. And you go back a couple thousand years to some of the great philosophers, in Greek and Roman times, Aristotle, Socrates, and all that kind of stuff. And you sort of look at all of the things that have built up to what we have right now. All of the aggregate accumulation of human knowledge to get us to where we're at right now has only arrived at the technology that we have today. You start thinking about way further off into the future, and I actually talked about this in one of the earlier episodes, is that you look at the development of humanity in broad strokes over in like how logical is it for us to utilize the energy that we have today, right? And so this is something called the Kardashev scale. Go watch that episode. It's completely, it's some good thought-provoking stuff. But this is why I look at it, is that for us to fully, utilize just our own planet's energy and to utilize things like mastering the weather of a single planet, right? We're still not even at Kardashev level 1, meaning that, we can't even efficiently use or understand the sources of energy within our own planet. We have nuclear capability. That makes sense. But now you start going, okay, well, can we utilize the energy of an entire solar system? And then you have the entire galaxy, and then a universe, and then other dimensions, right? These are the concepts of humanity being able to efficiently utilize the energy that it has at its disposal on a microcosm, and then going all the way out to entire universes and other dimensions of utilization of energy. And I don't mean to say this like I'm a crazy person or anything like that, but I look at what would it take for us to develop organic intelligence without outside help. And I really think, and I start to look at it, that we're talking about work in the orders of magnitude of tens of thousands of years to come up with something as brilliantly designed as a human being. If you look at something as brilliantly constructed as the human body, right? And all of the intricate pieces that you could consume anything into the body, and then there's systems that will convert what you're eating into energy, and it will break down components to the exact physical components, down to the molecule, down to an atomic level, that it can process the things that we eat in order to create the energy that's required for our brains, right? You look at something like, the pancreas, you look at something like the liver, and the complex processes that go on between that. You look at, the intake of air, the conversion to energy, you look at the heart, you look at every one of these things. If you look at literally the brilliance that it took to come up with the human body, there is no way that we came up, that humans were created by accident. Now, you can draw your own conclusions from that, from a supreme being to a creator. You can draw all of your own conclusions to that. To me, I look at it is, why do we keep copying? Why do we keep copying the human form to this is the best that we can come up with, right? Is like, okay, we're gonna make robots that are just like us. Like, okay, is there a better design? I'm gonna tell you this right now. Like, no, I don't think so. Right. And so I started thinking about the fact that we to come up with something as brilliant as the human form factor that we have today, that we enjoy in these bodies that we drive around, I think that we haven't even gotten to the first square of being able to come up with the blueprint and understanding. DNA, mapping the human genome, all of that is absolute garbage. You're just basically observing something that's already happened. To create it from the ground up and create intelligence the way, that we think of it today, I really think that we're a couple 100,000 years from even being able to scratch the surface. We can't even conceive of what we haven't conceived yet, if that makes sense. Let's talk about the difference between artificial intelligence and life force. I was kind of thinking about, the fact of something very simple. I love my puppy. I think that he's awesome. And he's a little, mini poodle, is about 12 pounds. And you just look at a puppy, or you look at any animal. You look at a goldfish. You look at a zebra. You look at a lion. You look at a salmon, a bear. All of these things, what do they have? Is that there is a force that causes that thing to live, right? And as soon as something is dead, that life force is gone, okay? It doesn't exist anymore. A dead animal has no desire to survive. It has no desire at all. It's an inanimate object, right? And so the thing about artificial intelligence is that, where is the life force? If I had a computer, right, that had, you think about the computing power that it takes to power artificial intelligence as we know it today, there is no life force. The life force is brought to it by human beings. So this is one of the reasons why I look at artificial intelligence. I'm not so worried about it, is because there is no life force. It doesn't even have the same level of life force that, that animates my puppy. It doesn't even have the same life force that animates a goldfish. And I think that when you look at the real true value of life and the things that animate the things around us, that put order into the universe, artificial intelligence comes up very, very lacking in that regard. And I would tell you this right now, I don't think that we have to worry about that. Again, what do we have to worry about? Humans weaponizing artificial intelligence against other humans, but the thing itself, it being able to synthesize or come up, with organic thought, I think, again, we're very, very far away from that ever happening. But I just want you to just think of that the simple life force that we have in just the most basic animals, down to even amoebas, there is no animation, there is no life inside of these computing things. It gives us the appearance of life, but in fact, it is not actual force of life. Artificial intelligence, if left on its own, would simply begin to decay. Let's play out a scenario. Somehow or another, artificial intelligence winds up completely destroying all of humanity. Not a single person is left on Earth. You start to think of itself like, in the Matrix. This thing starts to have an original thought, and now it goes into a mode of self-preservation. Again, without actual life force, right, that's not going to happen. But let's say that it has some programming in place for self-preservation, that it starts to, to replicate and sort of duplicate. Eventually, I believe that because there is no organic life force, it would eventually wind up decaying and diminishing because like the pieces in and of itself would start to break down. Yes, you'd say, oh, well, it's programmed, self-reliance and the ability to repair and all these different types of things. And I said, I believe that there's going to wind up, you're going to be getting to a critical point where that starts to turn in the other direction and it will begin to diminish. It's my opinion. I'm allowed to have that. But I just really think that the creation and continuance of self is something that, because there is no life force, artificial intelligence is destined to essentially begin a process of decay the moment that it is disengaged from its human masters. That's the way that I think of it. One of the things that inspires me a great deal is looking at how much more superior human beings are to artificial intelligence. I'll give you an example. This is something that's really, really near and dear to my heart. I play guitar. I'm a musician. Computers today and artificial intelligence, you can program it and you can give it all kinds of parameters. You can give it all kinds of input. You can say, hey, listen, I want you to create a song, and I want the song to be as if Jimi Hendrix, I want it to be a new song. So let's have you come up with a theme, and it's going to wind up, having this particular rhythm and all these types of things. And you, by saying, be like Jimi Hendrix, it will completely build a total song. And what's it going to do? It's going to take every song that Jimi Hendrix has ever created. It's going to say, these are the basic song structures. What song structures did he use the most, right? And so it's going to say, did he use a 1-4-5? Did he use a 2-5-1? Is he going to, and you're going to start to see, and it's going to say, listen, it calculates this is the structure that Jimi Hendrix is most likely to use for his next song. Then it's going to say, what types of, rhythms is it going to use? What's the average tempo that he was going to use? What's the subject matter that he would put in place for a song? And so it's going to extrapolate all of these different things, and then it's going to give you a new song, then it's going to wind up, sounding a lot like Jimi Hendrix. In fact, with today's, artificial intelligence, you can wind up having someone that sings and it sounds just like Jimi Hendrix. You can say, hey, I want the tone to be exactly like this. I want it to sound like this album. I want the drums to sound like Mitch Mitchell. I want this, all of these types of things to be in place. But the fact of the matter is that it organically coming up with and creating something without reference to just be inspired out of the gate, we are very, very far away from organic inspiration ever coming, in the same way that Jimi Hendrix could just come up with a song and just be like, wow, there is a reason why that guy is a guitar god. This is a weak emulation. It is a copy that is just leaves much to be desired, because there's just nothing that would ever replace the inspiration of Jimi Hendrix or any great artist. And so we start to look at that and go, okay, do we have any danger? Is there, how much more superior is the computing power of a human being? It is so far superior, but we're tricked. We're tricked into the fact that it can compute, it can take equations and do them very, very quickly. But humans are the only things that can conceive of the problem and the question to ask and then start breaking it down. I think AI is going to be a great tool for us to solve problems in the future. But the problems that we're asking about existence, about, the nature of the universe, AI can't come up with those things, and it has no interest in any of that stuff, which is why I love humanity and I love being a human being, is because I'm inspired by the inspiration of others. And I think that long term, this is going to be the thing that's going to evolve humanity to the next level. AI will be a tool for that, but it's not going to be the thing that's going to drive it all the way, to the next evolution of us as a species. So case in point, I've got a good example. I had a friend of mine that we sat down and we were, he wanted to show me ChatGPT. I'd known that it had been around for a while, and I was just like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And, I've kind of seen some YouTube videos on it and it seems kind of interesting and whatnot. And he goes, no, check this out. And so what did he do? He gave it parameters. He gave it prompts. He said, listen, I want you to write a letter, and I want the letter to be written from this point of view. I want it to have these bullet points. This is my argument. This is what I want it to have as, sort of its central concept. And then the target audience is this group of, technical, science type of people. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but he says, this is the receiving group of people. And I want you to structure a letter that's going to, have them take this particular action. And so he put all of that into ChatGPT, types it in, and the next thing you know, it pops out a letter. And this letter was awesome. I mean, he said it did everything that I asked it to do. It came up with the perfect letter for this particular audience. And I was thinking about that, and I said, man, this helped my friend to reduce the amount of work that he needed in order to be able to get, this particular thing accomplished with this group of people that was the target audience of his letter. But I said, but at no point in time would ChatGPT have been able to pose that as a problem and then give itself all of those prompts in order to be able to do that. That's why my friend was the driver. And I'm going to keep coming back to that concept again, is who is driving? Nobody's driving. As scary as AI we think that it is, as scary as, cyborgs and all of these different things that are coming out, without an actual organic driver moving these things forward, nothing is going to happen. And I think that this is really an example of how we can compress timeframes to evolve humanity, is by using a tool like artificial intelligence to solve some of the problems that they're actually sort of mundane. It's like, but the real inspiration and the vision of the future, that's going to come from humanity. And I don't think that there's anything that's ever going to replace us in that regard. So recently, I've started reading a book. I'm not all the way through it yet, but I've gotten a good chunk into it. And it's a book called The Artilect War. And what is an artilect? Artilect stands for artificial intellect. And, and I'm not going to get into it. Actually, I will a little bit. It's a very difficult book to find. I bought it for a couple $100 on eBay, and it's since grown to anyways, it's very tough to get this book. If you find a copy, I'd highly recommend that you grab it if you can. But basically, the author, I think it's Hugo de Maris, he poses this situation where you have, these two groups of people, and it's like the Terrans and the Cosmos, right? And so essentially the Terrans are the people that say, listen, this is what's going to happen, is that humanity is always going to be sort of the senior life form, and the artificial intelligence is going to be, sort of a subordinate life form. And I'm oversimplifying this, fairly complex concept within the book. But then you have the Cosmos, and what are they saying? No, that the next evolution of humanity is artificial intelligence. And what happens is that they, sort of denigrate or relegate humanity as subordinate to artificial intelligence. Well, what does that do? That actually puts artificial intelligence on a pedestal as sort of, in this book, it sort of deifies or turns into a god artificial intelligence. And I'm sitting there going, wow, this argument is very, very dangerous. And the book is fantastic so far on sort of like posing this as a moral conundrum. But I'm sitting there going, if this occurs, humans eventually and essentially will sort of subordinate themselves as a slave race to the artificial intelligence. And what will they wind up doing? Humanity will be disposable. And to me, that is really, really terrifying. And I think that this is a conversation that this book, written, I think it's like almost 20 years ago. This is a conversation that is really important for us to kind of like refer to right now, like to have this conversation right now, because eventually if we start to progress to that point where we've got, these hugely godlike machines that are being built, and we turn them into gods, then what happens is that the elimination of the human race becomes secondary if you're trying to appease your technical, your sort of the technocratic gods, as it were. And we get into some very, very dangerous waters, and we need to make sure that we protect against that. Humanity is a creation that whatever your belief is in a supreme being or God. And we have intelligence. We are a driver within the inside the meat popsicle, as it were. And I just think that once we start to degrade that and lessen that, well, next thing you know, we are 1 foot out the door. And will we come back around again? Probably. But if this artificial intelligence was to wipe us out, it would take a number of years for it to degrade. And then, we'd go back to sort of like, the jungles and overgrowth of a fully, sort of a planet that doesn't have people on it. And then we would eventually, sort of come back, in my opinion. There might be a bunch of us hiding out in, random caves in the foothills of some random country. But I really think that, this is a conversation. Let me put it this way. Let's just not let it get there. Let's just make sure that we always know that we are the top of the food chain. And these are tools for us to, increase and improve our lives, as opposed to replace us, completely. So let's wrap this up. I think that I feel, let me take that again. So let's wrap this up. What's the trajectory? I mean, I think that that's really what we want to, kind of like have the closing thought on this is, what's the trajectory? Where are we headed with this? I think that, the big takeaways right now is that artificial intelligence, as it stands, is going to make life and work much, much easier for us. It's going to, put things in place. To be honest with you, I look at some of the things that are the jobs that are going to be taken away. And that worries me. It worries me that there's going to be a lot of jobs, especially in the creative world. I think that one of the people that has been doing just tremendous work on this, Justine Bateman, I gotta give a shout out to her. I am so impressed by her conclusions on how damaging artificial intelligence is going to be, especially to the film world. I'm not even in that world, but the things and the arguments that she's coming up with are really, really critical to the conversation today. But those jobs, creative jobs are going to be going away. Not to mention, marketing jobs, manufacturing jobs, like all of these jobs. And what does that do? All that does is it works to depress society. Because what does society need? Society needs purpose. Society needs to be able to have each one of the individuals feel like they are contributing to the forward progress of, mankind. Whether you're a janitor or you're a CEO, everybody has a purpose. And if you're fulfilling that purpose and you're moving downfield as far as progressing humanity forward, I think that is good. But when you start saying, humanity is now time to move over and this other entity is going to take over, I think that that's very, very bad. So I think that right now, us keeping things in perspective, keeping the main thing, which is artificial intelligence is the tool that's going to help our lives, and we embrace that, I think that that's going to be great. What are some of the things that I look at is, again, being able to get to Mars, I think, is a rallying cry. I mean, I said this before, is that it's the thing that's going to rally up humanity. Why? It's a contest that I think everybody on the planet can get behind. Some people are not, in favor of it, but I think that, going forward, anything that's going to wind up shortening that runway and getting us closer to these goals and having a game that everyone can engage in and develop. I mean, imagine those technologies again that are going to wind up, helping us in the future. I think it's going to completely change our lives, and I'm excited about that. But I think it's a cautionary tale that we should be recognizing right now is that AI has its place, and we just have to make sure that the people in charge don't try to replace humanity with something that doesn't have a soul and doesn't have a driver, because that will just not end well for anyone. So have an awesome day. I love you. I appreciate you. We'll see you on the next episode.